Welcome to Vets to PM's Military Transition Academy podcast, the show where we discuss how to succeed in transitioning from the military service to the civilian workforce. This show and the academy it represents helps veterans transition into meaningful, lucrative post-service careers. Your primary host is Eric Doc Wright, PhD, certified manager, military veteran, serial founder, best-selling business author, philosopher, linguist, and coach. Your other host is Jeremy Burdick, project management professional, scrum master, product owner, and retired Air Force chief, and the current COO of Vets to PM and the Professional Development Unit University, where we will interview veterans successful in corporate America and business to bring you nuggets of wisdom every episode to make you more successful. Next, let's introduce today's guest.
Our special guest today is Hank Alemany. He is the founder and CEO of Brew Up Barks, Army veteran and avid adversary against self-assassination. This episode is pretty cool. It's talking anywhere from men's mental health and how to get people to take the first step, what helped him, and why people need dogs. Tune on in.
Hey, Jeremy, dude, and MTA Podcast Nation, welcome back to this episode. What's up, brother?
Oh, good, man. I'm especially stoked about this because I think it's a unique opportunity for people to hear about what's going around in Hank's mind. So I can't wait to get started.
And oh my gosh, before we let that pipe hitter take the microphone, man. So there I am standing at a table, right? The old Hong Kong no shitter. There I am standing at a table in Synapse, a high-tech conference in Florida. People going, why are you here? And I'm like, because I supply the high-tech talent to do your high-tech business. They're like, oh, got it. The dots are connected. But I'm standing there and up walks Hank. And so we start chatting about, hey, veteran, Florida-owned business, veteran business owner guy, like Stu Smith from FAVOB, CEO of Florida Association of Veteran-Owned Businesses, standing at the booth next to me. We're crushing it. We're entertaining and training all kinds of folks that get within 10 feet of us. And Hank drops. So, dude, tell me about your service. Tell me about your transition. Tell me about your business. What he drops on me, dude, I never saw coming. I've never heard anything like it. I thought it was cool as shit. Wait, can I say that on radio? I guess I just did. Anyway, Hank, dude, what is going on, man? Welcome to the podcast.
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me, dude. It's an absolute pleasure.
Yeah. So we know all about you. The peeps just heard your introduction, man, but let's hear it from you, brother. So tell me real quick, 2 minutes or less, like where did Hank come from? How did he get to this podcast today?
Man, that's a long story. I got plenty of stories, but I guess like 6 years ago, something like that, I decided that I wanted to finally venture into the military. That's something I'd always wanted to do. Got after it. Sadly, I was medically discharged before I could get my Green Beret. Experienced some things during the whole COVID, situation, being locked down on base and all that. And more recently here in the past couple of years, I've had a lot of friends of mine inside and outside of the military struggling with mental health, myself included, as we all have our own struggles. And now I'm just trying to kind of revamp my businesses in a sense that can help solve some of those issues. And I really want to put a big dent in this mental health issue, before I'm dead. So.
Yeah, cool. And so for those of you, listening, I mean, if you think the military transition is a kick in the nuts, wait till you're med boarded out. Wait till you don't have any idea what your timeline is. You have no idea what ratings they're going to give you. You have no idea what you're going to do next. I mean, the transition is rough as it is. And then the med board on top of the whole thing just makes it a complete soup sandwich for the vet that's experiencing it, right? So you got all the other stuff. Hey, I don't get to be a sailor. I don't get to be a soldier. You got all this other stuff going on. And then you add that in the top, man. It's just a wacko mix. So Hank, so you want to help with military mental health, man. And in general, so all kinds of peeps listen to this show, man. I mean, who knows? They got a brother or a sister. Hey, I got a cousin. Like, hey, listen to their guy's podcast. So dude, talk about the mental health aspect and talk about your absolute, unique as heck solution, man.
Yeah, thanks, man. First thing that I want to do is support other organizations that I think are doing a really awesome job. One of which I've been raising money for is Canine Partners for Patriots. They're out of Brooksville, Florida. They provide service animals for veterans who are in distress, right? PTSD, anxiety, stuff like that. So to piggyback off of that, that's why I'm trying to create this company. It's a dog bar, but we'll get into that a little bit later. I feel like men in particular, because I've been through this situation and I'm, I guess what you can call like, you know, a classic, like quintessential man's man, or at least I try to be. I feel like I understand a demographic that's very misunderstood these days. And I think I'm starting to learn how to get people from 0 to step 1. And in my opinion, that's like the hardest thing that we can do. So a lot of guys just don't want to talk about shit. They don't want to sit down in a group and talk about their feelings, or they don't want to go to a men's breakfast and have people pray on them because it's awkward and everything. And although a lot of those things can be good for certain people, for other guys, it scares them away. You know, I like to think of, men like us almost like a wounded animal, right? If you run after that animal with good intentions, they're still going to run away from you and they're not going to trust you ever again. But if you consistently put food out and walk away and, build this trust so they know that you don't have anything, you don't have any skin in the game, you're not trying to get anything out of them, one day they will come to you for help. And excuse me, that's what I'm trying to portray, right? In the meantime, before this dog bar opens up, I'm trying to do this with my church to where we can just have men's events where we're just becoming better protectors and providers, and having a community around us to where if we need anything at any point, we'll have it. But with this dog bar idea, what I'd like to do is not start my own fundraiser, not do my own nonprofit, because I know a lot of guys feel like, well, if you're involved in a nonprofit, then you're getting something from it, right? So this dog bar is a way for me to make my own money, be separated from the donation stuff. And instead of taking money from people, I'm going to be giving it to organizations like Canine Partners for Patriots. And I kind of want this business to be an undercover way to help people with mental health issues, right? So I'm hoping that they can come into this environment, have, the love and affection that a dog can bring you, just be able to come to this place, not have any judgment. Nobody knows that they're there to, feel a little bit better, whatever you want to call it. They can just hug a dog, feel a little better, and anonymously ask for help at our facility. So I think that if we can make it a little bit easier for people to go from 0 to step 1, then more people will do it. And, especially in our community where we're very, driven, like you guys are hyped, like a lot of guys wake up at 5:30 in the morning and run. There's a lot of guys who want to do that, but because they're struggling with depression, anxiety, PTSD, whatever you want to call it, we really have to back off the intensity. And instead of these guys making a deal with themselves, like I'm going to wake up tomorrow at 5:30 and I'm going to go for a 10-mile run, it might have to be as simple as, listen, I'm just going to go to the dog bar and pet a dog. And that's all I'm going to do today. And if I can at least do that, then that's one small accomplishment. And we're trying to get them to the point to where they can start taking care of themselves a little better and not beating themselves up so bad because they feel like a piece of shit. So,
yeah. Wow. That's powerful.
Baby, isn't that such a, it makes sense when he explains it, right? Like, hey, dude, let's give them a safe environment where they just come be themselves. Like, let's start right there. Let's get them socializing. Let's get them out of their own heads. Like, let's start right there and don't come at them with anything.
Yeah, that's the show right there. You could almost turn it off, and you just got some serious wisdom there. And I think the allusion that you make to a wounded animal, I can't think of anything better than that example. I mean, it's really well thought out. And then you add to, sometimes they'll run, but a wounded animal will also strike, right? Like if you come at them too hard, too fast, they're going to lash out, and you're now the victim because, and no fault necessarily to them either, because they're doing what they're programmed to do, and they're just fighting back because they're not feeling that trust and empathy that you're trying to build from that. And I like the way you put it, 0 to step 1. You're not done. but that hardest part is that momentum. They call it hysteresis. It's a scientific word, but it's like moving a train. All the energy is that first movement. And then from there's that momentum just gets going, or like a rocket trying to leave gravity. 80% of it's the first like 10 feet or something. So it just really well thought out statements that I think will resound with our audience. So well said.
And I like that addition of, striking back. I'm someone who is in decent control of my emotions, but a lot of people aren't. And a lot of people are dealing with a lot harder things than me. And, so at the moment I'm doing this like hero walk for Canine Partners for Patriots. And instead of walking every day, I'm trying to speak and provide some value just based on things that have helped me in my progression, from feeling like a piece of shit to like maybe getting a little bit better. And that's one thing that I really want to kind of have people understand is like, why are we acting this way, right? Like, how can you approach people? Like, what's a little bit more appropriate? Because I feel like a lot of people in the mental health space are women, and they're trying to attack these problems as if they have the same kinds of, emotional reactions, or the same, we heal the same way, whatever you want to call it, right? But you have to approach men completely differently, especially more aggressive type men, more introverted type men who are protectors and providers, and they want to do the same for themselves. And trust is probably the biggest thing. So that's why I say I want this to be undercover, because I don't want people to think that like I'm going after them, right? That's why like I want this facility to be the food that's left out, and you guys can just keep coming and coming and coming, and we'll just keep feeding you as much as you need to. And when you need help, we'll be there, and a lot of people are saying, well, a lot of veterans have problems with alcohol abuse and stuff like that. So how could you open a bar and invite people who are hurting to come in there? I'm not scared of these things, right? If someone's going to have a problem, I want them to have a problem in a place where we can deal with it, right? Obviously, I don't want anybody to have a problem. I don't want someone to come out if they feel too uncomfortable, if they're having trouble with their PTSD or some sort of, they're afraid to have a relapse. I don't want any of that. But if someone's going to get into something, I am going to have resources at this facility to where we can help people. And that's what I want to do. I want to partner with people who are already doing great things. And one of the strengths that we talked about when I had met you is that for some reason, people trust me, right? Maybe it's because I don't give a shit about what other people think, and they understand that I'm genuine, but I want to build trust with people and be able to connect them with other people. Because even on a lower level, guys come up to me and they're like, hey man, I'm not doing good. Can you help me? And I'm like, yeah, here's this person. And they're like, well, I don't know. I don't like going to doctors. I had a problem with my last one, whatever. But if I tell them, hey, listen, I trust this person, so it's going to be okay, they'll go. And I've seen that time and time again. Guys who will not talk to anybody, and I didn't know that they even had a problem. After a couple months of us just being around each other, they pulled me aside and they're like, hey, man, I need some help. And then I can put them in the right space, right? I think a lot of people, really all you need to do is be a trusted confidant for these people and have people that you trust. Like, you have to actually trust them. It can't just be some random person that you bring them to. And I think we can really start helping people that way, because they're not going to think you're getting anything out of it. If you're a psychologist and you're just constantly telling this person you need to go to a psychologist, some people are going to think that you have some sort of angle, regardless of whether you do or not. And like, this place in particular, they're a nonprofit. A lot of people have a negative connotation with nonprofits, but I've talked to these people. I've sat down with them. I've worked with them. I trust them. I know that they're going to take care of people that I bring to them. So that's why I bring people to them. But I want to stay away from it so that hopefully people can trust me, understand that I don't have a bias with any of this shit. I just want to help. And, maybe I can be a resource for people.
So Hank, you're basically, dude, kind of facilitating the dance, right? Like, hey, I know I've got some hurting peeps. I know I've got some peeps that can help. And I like how you said it. I mean, so, it's not always, you listen to the news and you listen to the VA and you listen to other people who we consider experts, and like, everybody's broken, everybody's got PTS, whatever. And, you read some of Sebastian Younger stuff and it's like, wait a minute, we've got the lowest amount of of battlefield injuries, claims, et cetera, maiming, death, whatever, than any generation to date. But we've got the highest amount of claims. And then you look at society as a whole. In general, the average bear, little overweight, highly over-medicated, like it. So it sounds like to me, hey, I'm just a guy who's trying to develop an understanding of the target audience. And then I know people who can take care of it. And you've mentioned it several times. I mean, veteran mafia, man, we're skittish. We don't do outsiders well. Yeah. You're a vet, you're in the club. You're a patriot, you're in the club. You're not, well, I'll find somebody in the club, and so you might miss out on access to somebody or something, some program that could help you. So it sounds like that's really what you're doing is, hey, I'm going to have a spot where come hang out. First and foremost, man, let's just get you healed up. Let's get you socializing. Let's get you out of your head. And then, hey, man, as you start to warm up and you start to figure out what you might want or need, I know people who can help you with that stuff. Is that kind of the vision?
Yeah. And, I'm trying to encourage a purpose too, right? And the target audience is me, right? Like I try to be self-sufficient, right? And I try to figure out my own problems. So I've been constantly just doing research just all day long, listening to like 4 to 6 hours worth of podcasts, like you name it, trying to help myself, right? So the things that are working for me, I try to relate to other people. But the biggest thing that I see with myself and people around me is that you get out of the service and you don't have a purpose anymore, right? And people get lost. They don't know what to do. They don't know where to go. And that's when people start spiraling because they essentially have too much time to think, right? So not only do I want to have a community of guys around to be there, but I want to encourage somebody to have a purpose, right? We're going out to be better protectors and better providers and help the community around us. A lot of what I'm trying to do is, for example, like offer a free like pistol or rifle course, right? That anybody can go to, whatever. I'm trying to do these things through other organizations so we can get more people involved. But I'm trying to have some of these veterans who are struggling and hurting coming out to teach these courses. So now they feel like they have a purpose. A lot of veterans that I talk to in particular say they just don't feel important anymore, right? Like when you're in the military, regardless of whether you're doing a job or not, in the back of your mind that you have a job, that your job is to serve your country. So whatever you do all day long, you're serving your country. You come home and you're like, the hell am I doing now? I'm not doing anything. Like I'm worthless, right? So I want to, again, like undercover, bring back that worth. If we go out and you learn something and you get a little bit better and you get a little bit more proficient with your firearm or archery or what have you, then they're going to feel better about themselves at the end of the day, because as men, we inherently want to be better protectors and providers. And if we're actively working towards that goal or helping other people move towards that goal, I think that in itself can solve a lot of problems. And if things are still getting bad for this people, at least there's going to be a trusted confidant of guys that will be there to help you out, because we're all trying to figure this shit out ourselves.
Yeah. I mean, I think you made an amazing point, is the purpose side of things. I think if you don't have a purpose, because you came from something so purposeful, right? In the military, everybody feels like they mean something. Even the outside society, they look up to you. They build you up. And then you almost start to believe that they only looked up to me because I happened to be wearing that uniform. 100%. So they didn't even see Jeremy. They saw, Chief Master Sergeant Burdick. That's who they saw. Like they didn't see who I was really. They saw my purpose. And then when that's gone, they're like, well, shoot, I don't matter as much as I thought I did, or as much as I once did. So you kind of felt that meaningful purpose, and now it's gone. So it's like, man, you've lost that bearing, that gravity that was meaning, that self-worth portion. So I think that is a huge point. And Doc brought it up earlier. Sebastian Younger wrote that book, Tribe. And I feel like that was almost like medication for my mind. I don't know if you've ever read it, but man, I really, really, I appreciate Doc, you giving me that book, and having me read it. And I was like, oh my goodness, dude, this is all the words I want to say, but I didn't know how to say them. And I didn't even understand the feelings that were going on. So right on.
I think a
And
lot of people
war. I
are
mean,
also,
you
I'm sorry about that. Go ahead.
you can hand those books to other people to understand how you feel.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
Sebastian Junger's Tribes and Sebastian Junger's War. In fact, JB, I just thought about it. We should get him on the podcast. But and then on top of that, you exacerbate that, right? So you're feeling lost, you're feeling like you don't matter, you're feeling like you don't have a purpose. And oh, by the way, everybody around you on the streets walking by could give a shit less, man. Their face is buried in their mobile device. They don't care about themselves or each other. You know what I mean? Like we're all completely disconnected, even though it's called social media and mobile phones, right? Like it's having the reverse effect on society at large. So I just, those two things just exacerbate each other to no end. So Hank, sorry, brother, tell me.
No, it's fine. I was just going to say another problem that I have seen, with myself and friends of mine is a pursuit of happiness. I think that's a dangerous thing to pursue, right? So I've seen a lot of guys get a lot out of going to the range and teaching other people how to shoot because, again, they feel like a meaningful person. They feel like they're valuable or they've contributed to something, as opposed to chasing something that makes them feel happy, because you'll chase that forever, right? Like I'm doing videos every day for this company. I hate it. Like, I don't like being on camera. I don't like being in front of people. But, like a week before I went to Synapse and I met you, I was at a funeral for another one of my friends who took their lives. And I'm done with it. This purpose is what's driving me to do what I don't want to do. And I think that we can almost force that with a lot of guys, to where I invite them out and I'm like, hey, man, you have a skill, you have a talent. Other people need it. Can you come out and help other guys? And they're like, hell yeah, I'll do that. But if you're like, hey, man, will you come out and help yourself? They're like, no, I don't want to do that shit.
Yeah. Yeah. To me, it's amazing that you put it that way, right? You don't even realize that's just not part of your inner fabric core, right? Like you're not wired that way. I think as a veteran, it's you, because you serve, like you raise your hand, you say, bang, I'm serving. And it's not necessarily, so I've never even put that together, that it's not something you want to do. I mean, sometimes it is, but it's not something you want to do. It's what you're called to do. It's who you are. So I like that. I like that twist on it, to where, hey, don't necessarily always focus on your happiness, focus on your mattering and what you're good at and what your skill set is and who you are. And that doesn't mean you can't reinvent yourself. It just means that focus on where you're purposeful. So, I mean, well said. I mean, I
think it comes back to understanding how to speak to men, right? Mm-hmm. If you were to say to a woman, most women, whatever you want to call it, like, you need to take care of yourself. You need to take care of yourself. You need to take care of yourself. That they might hear that and they might respond to that. But with a man, what I've seen that works better with guys like me and all my friends is that I have to say, hey, man, if you don't take care of yourself, you can't appropriately take care of your kids and your wife. And that scares them to death. Once you put them in a situation like, hey, man, imagine if you have an issue outside, right? Like, I know that's what you're scared of, but they don't want to seek help because they're scared of tackling that problem. But they're more scared of the effect it's going to have on their family. So in essence, you just have to find something that either makes you more fearful or that you're more passionate about, and for me, I'm more passionate about helping people and getting dogs in the hands of veterans, things like that, than I am, hating social media and posting and being on videos and just talking and being in front of people and stuff,
Yeah.
So that's what's driven me to get out. And now what's happening is, like, I'm on the couch less, right? I'm doing woodworking projects. Like, I shoot like 50 arrows a day kind of stuff. So now I've caught that momentum, like you were saying, from this healthy behavior of like, okay, well, if I don't figure out how to help myself, then another one of my friends might take their own lives. And I'm way more fearful of that happening than whatever's going to happen to me in the process of trying to figure this shit out. So that's just what I'm trying to share with people. And I'm hoping that you almost have to trick people, it's almost like a kind manipulation, right? Like, okay, I have this facility. It's a dog bar, right? It's got coffee, it's got alcohol, it's got food, whatever. Everyone's going to be there hanging out because it's going to be a cool place. And then you can sneak your way in there, hug a dog, and feel better. Nobody knows that that's why you're there. And then there's a QR code on the wall, and you're like, you know what? I just I need to talk to somebody, right?
Love it.
And hopefully they understand that I own the company, right? Like, this is why I'm doing it. Like, I'm no bullshit. I'm a regular dude. And, you know, like, they can trust the resources that I've put in front of them. So I don't know, hopefully it'll help somebody, you know?
I like what you said there too. I mean, it's not necessarily manipulation. It's like, it's manicured motivation, right? Like,
whatever you want to call it, you know,
I'm a
the technical
motivated
definition is manipulation, but a lot of people
Right.
have a negative connotation with that word. But if you look at
Yeah.
the exact definition, that's what we're doing. But if you have to change the verbiage to make someone feel better about it, then fine. But that's what we're doing here, right? Like, we have to talk to different people in different ways. And not every man can be talked to this way, right? But we're talking about more aggressive, more protector, provider type men. You can't give them like selfish verbiage because they don't want to help themselves, right? But if you can make them understand that helping themselves, at least to a bare minimum, is going to make them better at helping the people that they care about, then you'll be able to kind of trick them into helping themselves, which it's not really a trick, but you just have to make them understand that this is going to be better for everybody if you're better.
Right.
So a couple points. So manipulation is, you know, bad if you're affecting somebody's behavior for your benefit. If you're affecting their behavior for their benefit, I don't think that's manipulation, right? That's care, that's compassion, that's concern. The other thing too is, you know, Hank, as you're chatting, dude, I think about the themes that are popping out here. Continued sense of mission and purpose, continued service, you know, continued dedication to those around me, both in my family, friends, community, society. I mean, you know, I didn't join the service for those things. I was an 18-year-old dumb kid. I had no idea what those things would mean until I saw them in the rearview mirror. And now, as a man in my community and taking care of others and taking care of employees and taking care of veterans and corporate America and my kid, my wife, and my dog. I mean, now all those things mean something. Now I've got grown-up words to say, hey, I did learn honor. I did learn courage. I did learn dedication. I did learn tenacity and perseverance. I learned all that stuff. I just didn't have the words nor the altruistic view back then to know what I was doing it for. So, you know, that stuff, and you've hit it on a couple of times, man. It gets you out of your own head. For me, that's what I struggled with when I was in that dark hole, man. Like, you know, it's the cave in Star Wars, right? You're in there with your worst demons at night by yourself, and that's all you dwell on. Then that's a bad place to be. If you're outside your own head, if it's about others, if it's about continued service, that's, you know, it lets the light in.
Yeah. And anybody who had any sort of, you know, success or experience in the military, especially people who have issues, it's because they cared so much about the guy next to him that it affects them, right? A lot of issues that people have to do with what happened to other people. But think about that. You have to be a very selfish person for those things to not affect you. So we can't come to these people with a selfish solution. We have to come to these people with more of a communal communication, right? Like, hey, here's a solution. You need to help other people.
Yeah.
And by effect, it's going to help themselves. That's why, like, I try not to use buzzwords. I try not to say any of these things. I'm trying to, like, hey, man, I really need your help. You know, we have a big class coming up. I need you to help me teach. You know, I know that you can shoot, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, hell yeah, man, I'm there. Yeah. But I had just had a conversation with them. They don't want to be outside. They don't want to talk to people. They don't want to be around people. They don't want to seek help, any of that. But that's what they're doing, right? We go there, they're happy, they're smiling, right? They're in their element, and they'll hit me up 2 weeks later and they're like, man, I'm still living off that high, dude. It feels so good when people, you know, I still don't even feel like I'm very good at marksmanship, right? But there are people who are so much worse than me, and seeing their progression and seeing them get better, it makes me feel better about myself. And I'm like, yeah, man, I knew that was going to happen. So I'm glad you came out. And they're like, oh, you son of a bitch. You tricked me to get out there. But that's why, like, I just want to set up these places for people that they can go be themselves, be the best versions of themselves. And then without them knowing, they're getting better,
Too cool. Too cool. So, I mean, one of the big things to get from zero to step one is sometimes sharing your story with that person, right? So that they don't feel alone. Like, oh, I didn't know you had those feelings too. Yeah. So what has started to work for you? Like, what was that big first step for you that you try to share with others? I know you've shared a lot already, but, maybe one thing tactically that somebody that's listening, if it's, just one more day, right? Give them one more day. What can we do to do that?
Yeah. So it goes back to what I was talking about, right? So I didn't start talking about the things that happened to me until I knew that I needed to help somebody out, right? Like, I was trying to help somebody and talk them through their problems and, talk them off the ledge, essentially. And they're like, well, what do you know? And it's like, all right, well, like I'm not trying to, draw straws here or, like measure things, but, this is what happened to me. So like, I get it. And this is where I'm at because of these particular things, right? So that's why I try to encourage people to go out and help, because what I've seen happen, for example, with any of these courses, I'm like, hey, man, if somebody says like, hey, I'm having trouble with PTSD, right? I don't want to get out there. I don't want to be around people, whatever. We keep having a conversation. I try to distract them from that. And I'm like, hey, you spent some time overseas, right? I mean, I'm sure you've shot a lot. They're like, yeah, I'm pretty good with a rifle. I'm like, cool. We're having a rifle course. I'm trying to help people out. Can you come and help me facilitate this course, right? Because you have some sort of skills that I think are worthwhile. I don't say that, but that's how they feel, I get them out there. There's a veteran there who's kind of struggling, and all of a sudden they're sharing their story and they're talking to them about it. And I'm like, hey, man, I thought you don't really talk to people about that stuff. That's what you told me. And he's like, yeah, but he needed me, man. Like he needed to know that like I'm with him. And I'm like, well, why did you think that he needed to know that? He's like, well, because that's what I need. He's like, I don't trust somebody who doesn't know what I'm going through. And I'm going through the same thing as him. So he needed to know. And I'm like, well, maybe there's other people like you out there who you don't know that they're going through something.
Yeah.
So maybe you should start sharing a little more. And he's like, shit, dude, you're right. Because I want to help these people, So that's why I really feel like a lot of guys who are hurting are good dudes, and they don't feel like a valuable person anymore because they can't directly help other people, because that's all they were doing, right? When you're in that military environment, you're ingrained to think about fighting for the person next to you. And of course there's outliers, but the majority of people really want to fight for that person next to them. And a lot of guys don't have anybody next to them. So sometimes you might have to find somebody who's just as or more broken than you are to kind of build yourself back up and realize that you have skills, you have talents, you have worth, and these things that happen to you, you can use them in a positive way. Like that's what I'm trying to do with all of these, all of my friends of mine who have, taken their own life. I don't want it to be in vain. What am I going to do? That for me, the way that I compartmentalize things is like, okay, there's two options, right? I can either end things now, if we want to be real about stuff, right? I can either end things now, and there's 100% chance that nothing is going to work out for me, or I can just keep digging, and maybe there's a 0.01% chance that these things are going to work out before I die. But a lot of us are fighters, and there's guys out there who need you to fight for them. And if you give up, they're probably going to give up too. That's a big reason why I personally feel that suicides are on the rise, is because they're seeing someone else do it and they're like, well, maybe I should do it too, right? Somebody that they looked up to, that they didn't know that somebody was looking up to them. Yeah. They're like, okay, well, they made that decision. Maybe I should make that decision too. So, hopefully if guys understand like, hey, I'm not making that decision, maybe I'm not out every morning at 5:30 grinding away and rucking 12 miles, but like my fight is staying in it and just, just going for whatever I want to go for, right? You know, I want to make a lot of money. I want to have a really good family. I want to have wealth and influence so I can give back to people, so I can help other people, because I can't help people unless I help myself. If I had $100 and I give $1 to each homeless person I see, I'm out of money, and then I can't help anybody, you know? So I'm either going to put a huge dent in this problem or I'm going to die, you know, but I'm not going to do it myself. So that's why I'm starting to talk about this stuff more, is that, you know, like, this is my fight, whatever you want to call it. Everybody needs their own thing. You know, that's why people are protesting and they're out in the street or whatever, because everybody needs to have something that they're fighting for. And if you can find something positive to fight for, I think that'll get you up out of a pretty deep hole.
Yeah. I'm going to repeat something you said just so everybody can hear it again. If you do take your life, there is a 0% chance that it will work out.
Yeah.
A 0% chance. And all the people that you serve, your family, your friends, people that you didn't know looked up to you, will likely go deeper into their own holes as well. Like, you're creating more problems than you're fixing by taking your own life. 100% chance. Like, you will not fix anything by doing it. So hopefully somebody out there that's hurting hears that and says, okay, let me fight one more day. I mean, just give me one more day. Like,
and you don't even have to fight for yourself. You can fight for other people. There's plenty of people out there who are battling just like you. And if you feel alone, I guarantee you there's somebody else that feels alone. Yeah. So, you know, two people who are alone aren't alone anymore, right? So that's what I try to invite people to do. That's why I want a lot of guys that are hurting to come out with me and help other people. You don't have to be other veterans, because there are people that look up to you just because you were a veteran. You know, like me personally, you know, like it hurts me that I didn't get to go downrange. It's very painful for me to not get that opportunity. I was months away from getting my Green Beret, a huge dream of mine, not necessarily because I wanted the little green hat, but because I wanted to be next to those guys and I wanted to make sure that they were safe, right? I've been fighting and shooting and all that stuff my entire life. So I feel some sort of responsibility to be able to take these skills and talents that I have and go out and help these other guys who are trying to help everyone, right? And it kills me that I didn't do that. And essentially, I feel like I didn't do anything, you know? Like, my career ended in the Q course. Like, my only accomplishment is getting through, you know, SFAS. But there's a lot of people who look up to me for that. And regardless of how much of a piece of shit I feel, it's my decisions still affect other people, you know? So that's why I'm trying to teach jujitsu classes at colleges and, you know, teach rifle courses and get out and do some archery with guys and all that. Because for whatever reason, people look up to me, and I have a responsibility to be better for them.
Yeah, well said.
So it sounds like you got a lot going, man. But so tell me about the vision of the dog bar. I mean, when you dropped that on me at the table, I was like, you're going to do what, dude? And then you started walking me through it. I'm like, wow, man. So Hank, what's that look like inside your head, brother? So JB and I want to go have a bourbon. We're going to go have it at Hank's dog bar. Like, what do we see? What do we feel when we walk in, man?
Yeah. So the first thing is you're going to see, like, an all outside environment, right? This is all outdoors. We want people to get outside. We want people to get sun. We're in Florida. There's plenty of that. You're going to be greeted by a kind staff and people who are there who are in a good mood, right? Because there's food that's different every time. We're trying to make it so that people don't get bored, right? That's why we're doing food trucks instead of having our own food. We're also trying to support the community. There's a lot of people who I go to college with, which I forget, I go to college all the time doing my MBA, who are trying to start their own little mini food truck or food service. So we're going to have vendor spots for them to be able to have their own food, right? So I want to be able to support these people, give them a place to show their skills and talents. So you're going to walk in, you're going to see dogs everywhere. There's going to be a park to your left. There's going to be an on-leash area to your right. You're going to see automated tap systems to where you can pour by the ounce. We're working with a bunch of people to develop new technologies for bars to make them more efficient and more fun and more user-friendly. We're working with a local coffee shop. They're called Concord Coffee. They're going to be supplying, our coffee, our roast, all that kind of stuff. So we're going to have some really nice, like high-end coffee experience. You can bring your pet there and do your work. If you work at home, right, you can just come there and hang out. We're going to try to work with different organizations like the SPCA and like the Bully Project, who's local to us, to try to get some of these distressed animals and like adopt them for the day so that people who don't have animals can come in and just play and hug them and do whatever they want, right? But the main thing that I want out of this is for people to be able to go into a space where people are kind to them. They can breathe, they can relax, right? They can feel a little bit better because they have a dog. At the same time, people who have service animals can come in there without their harness on, right? They're not looked at differently than everybody else. I know a lot of issues that friends of mine who have service animals is that they get all the attention, and a lot of that attention elevates some of their symptoms. So that can be a problem. So I want them to be able to, take that thing off. Their dog can run around and be a dog, and they can run around and be a person, and they can still have that dog there for them if they have any issues. And I want people to know who have issues that this is, I don't like safe space, right? But I guess that's like what it is, like a judgment-free zone. Like, we don't care. We have resources to be able to handle issues that you have, right? Like if someone's having a panic attack at our facility, nobody is going to be really weird and call emergency services. Like, we're going to train our people to be able to look at these things and understand, like, give you your space. We're not, if something happens to you, we're not going to come up and ask you, right? We're going to be able to tell the difference between a real emergency and symptoms of, anxiety or things like that, right? And we'll have resources there for people to get help if they want it. But again, we're not trying to shove this stuff down people's throats. And I talked to a bunch of veteran organizations when we were at Synapse and things like that. So I'm going to be working with these different organizations that I have a personal connection with to try to connect people with these resources. So hopefully when they're there, they can keep coming, have a good time, feel like they trust me and they trust my company, and then reach out when they need help.
Oh, very cool, man. Sounds like a really happening spot. I mean, just a fun, even if you don't have a problem personally, still a great spot to just be at, especially if you love dogs, right? I mean, talk to me about the dogs. Like, why do people need dogs?
Humans, we put a lot of pressure on other people, right? Especially when you're in a relationship. Some people want that person to be their brother, their sister, their best friend, their lover, their therapist. That's not fair to that person, right? That's why you need guy friends. That's why you need your family. That's why you need a dog, right? Dogs will love you unconditionally. That's something that we don't get from people. And a lot of people who are hurting and lonely and things like that, sometimes they just need unconditional love, and they need to feel like they're not alone. And even when they're around a lot of people, they can still feel alone too. And, myself personally, and a lot of, friends of mine, and, I don't know the research, but from what I understand, there's good research that has been put out that, dogs really help heal people, not by some sort of magical reason, but just the same reason by any sort of love and affection will heal somebody is because you don't feel alone. You feel important. They get you out of the house most of the time. I've definitely had days where my dog hasn't left the house, but I feel terrible about it. And the next day I try to bring him out. We get sunlight and light, and we're outdoors. There's so many benefits, in my opinion, to having a trained dog. Now, I want to preface this, and that's really why I want to work with, organizations like Canine Partners for Patriots, is because I was advised at one point, hey, why do you need a service dog? Why don't you just get a dog, right? And I got a Catahoula leopard dog, and I love him to death. He's amazing, but he is very driven. And taking him outside can be like really stressful for me because I already have I'm very overwhelmed if I go places, right? And him not cooperating and just, peeing on stuff and sniffing things and jumping on people or kids or whatever, it's too much. And that can elevate some of the issues that I have, right? So that's why I think it's great what they're doing, putting trained animals so that now it's way more of a benefit than it is an issue. So I'm not telling people just go out and get a dog right away, because, that can be an issue. But I think dogs in general do help. And that's why we want to have dogs on facility that you don't have to take home with you, right? If you're in an apartment, or you don't have the ability to have a dog or a service dog, or you don't feel like you're ready to handle such responsibility, you can just go every single day, play with the dog, right? You don't have to have a membership to walk into the off-leash area, right? If you don't have a dog. So like I said, we're going to have dogs there for people where they can just go up and give them a hug, right? You don't have to be a veteran. Hopefully it's going to be right next to a big college. I'll be in there myself, hugging dogs and all that kind of stuff, because we love them. So that's why I think it's going to be good, because people who go there who are hurting understand that nobody's going to know why they're there, right? Everybody's there because they love dogs, right? You're just there because you love dogs. There's plenty of people who are going up, giving these dogs hugs and petting them and giving them treats and all that stuff. But if you need to feel a little bit better, come down to the dog bar, hug a dog, and go on with your day, man. That's just, we think that dogs can really make a huge impact on people's lives.
Wow. I don't doubt it. I do agree with your statement on the trained dog. I've got an idiot doodle that I like to run. Like, one of my ways to prevent like certain symptoms and such is to run. Like, just forget about distance, forget about anything else. Just go run. Just enjoy what God has created. And this dog can't do it. He will not run. He sees me go double time. He actually runs backward. He goes away from me. And he's like, I ain't doing it. You go too far, man. So yeah, he gives
up. My
up.
dog used to do the same thing. Actually, we found some other stuff too. And, that's why we're just, learning from each other kind of thing, which is also good, right? Because it's something new and different that I need to learn. That's why I've been encouraged people to get into other stuff. I just got into archery, right? And it's something that I can do every single day. It doesn't cost a lot of money. I have to do breathing techniques, right? So like every therapist and their mother is going to tell you, do yoga, meditate, blah, blah, blah. But a lot of guys like me, I'm like, that, I don't want to do that shit, right? But if I put a bow in a guy's hand and I'm like, hey, man, if you don't slow your heart rate down, you don't slow your breathing down, you're not going to hit the target. And they'll do it. So they've just done an hour worth of breathing techniques where sitting there for 30 seconds is just going to piss them off. So that's the kind of things I'm trying to get people to adapt to. But, like I figured out that my dog doesn't want to run, but if I get on a skateboard, he will sprint for hours at a time. And, I have the environment to where I can do that. And that's kind of fun for me. He pulls me around on the skateboard, we go and, I get some wind in my face and I don't have to physically exercise and all that kind of stuff. And he loves it, so it's good for the both of us.
Too cool. Great comment. I love the breathing take. What a camouflaged way to approach that. Right.
So that's another thing I'm trying to talk about on these videos that I'm doing on Instagram to try to spread awareness for this company, but also just try to provide value to people is ways to, get through to men, encourage men, or different ways to implement these techniques that we know are good, that we know we need to do, but we just need to find a different way to do them that adapts to our personality. The same answer isn't the same answer for everybody.
Wow. No. As we wrap it up, right? And because we've been at it for a little while, and I don't really want to stop because I think it's extremely valuable, and I'm enjoying myself. So I appreciate that, Hank. Doc, any questions that you want to get answered before we jump out of here?
No, I mean, I think, that's I think to Hank's whole point is there, a bit of self-reflection. There's ways to accomplish the things or use the tools that are proven to work, but put them in a context in which you feel comfortable, in which you'll use them, right? Like I do stretching every day, but that's not because I really dig stretching every day. It's because I'm 53 years old. And if I don't stretch every day, I look like I'm 97. That's why I don't dig it, but I slow my breathing, whatever. However, I would much rather slow my breathing by doing some archery, or when I'm in the water surfing, I feel much more energetic and much more enjoyment derived out of that stretching than stretching during my calisthenic routine. So I think that's the key, is just think about What are some of the tools and techniques? How do you incorporate them into your daily so that it's not a pain in your ass? It's something that you enjoy doing. Hey, go out and do archery for 30 minutes a day. Or like Hank said, I mean, I love that he's making his own arrows and stuff. So now there's even more payoff. I have a mission. I have a purpose. I have a sense of meaning. I'm going to make these arrows. I'm going to go do my breathing techniques, and I'm going to do some archery, and I'm going to be in the sunshine, get some vitamin D and whatever. I mean, how cool is that, dude? You just put like together 4 therapeutic things from a 30-minute archery session and, 30 minutes of preparation. How cool is that?
And this comes from me trying to help other people, right? It's like, I have a therapist recommend to me like, hey, like you need to do this, every day for 5 minutes, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, all right, well, I don't want to do that. So if I was going to recommend this to somebody else who's like me, who doesn't want to do it, because me sitting down in a silent room doing breathing techniques is just going to piss me off. I don't know why, but it makes me angry. So I was like, okay, if I'm going to recommend this to somebody else, how can we accomplish the same goal doing something that they like? So instead of me saying, hey, I need you to do a breathing technique for 2 minutes a day, I'm going to get to know this person. And this is what I try to advise other people to do if they're trying to help their friends and family, right? Get to know this person and try to make a recommendation that fits them. So I'm like, okay, hey, you like archery, right? I need you to take 25 precision shots every day. Can you do that? And they're like, hell yeah, that's awesome. They end up doing 50 to 100 shots a day because they don't want to stop. And afterwards, they're like, man, I feel so good. Archery just really heals me. Well, no, it's these other techniques that we know work, but we're just getting you to do something that you like, right? So it's not necessarily that you're just out doing something you like. It's that we're implementing these techniques in a different strategy. And I don't have to explain that whole thing to you to understand that this is going to help, And guys don't want a whole explanation. It's like, oh, you want me to shoot arrows 25 times a day? I don't know how that's going to help, but sure, whatever.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I love the way that comes off, honestly. And I'm sure there's a bunch of different resources and things. And that's, I guess, maybe my last question for you is, what resource externally have you found that one works for you or worked for you? Like, and I'm talking a book that somebody can go pull off the shelf right now and go get, or a podcast or something else that you would suggest?
Yeah, that's interesting. I can't read very well. I have some like reading impairments, so I listen to a lot of like YouTube videos and stuff like that quite often. There's a lot of things that have helped me understand myself and my surroundings. I like a lot of what Jordan Peterson puts out, especially on the health side. Something just quickly that I think really helped me a lot was cleaning up my water. And getting specific filters that take out iron and estrogenics and stuff like that. So there's a guy on Instagram who I really like, who puts out a lot of quick, good content about hormones. It's called Hormone Specialist. That's easy enough.
Okay.
He's an older gentleman with white hair, normally on a black background, and just eating more protein and more meat. Those things have helped me a lot. I switched to the lion diet for a couple of weeks to see how I felt. I felt a lot better, but what really seemed to help me was just trying to get at least 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight a day. I realized that I really wasn't getting enough like nutrients, and me trying to eat a healthy diet wasn't really doing it, but I could at least try to get enough protein every day. And that kind of helped facilitate other things too. So between the water, the protein, and I guess Jordan Peterson in terms of some sort of psychological mental health stuff, there's that. But I've really just been kind of testing things on myself for the past like 1.5 to 2 years. Like, hey, what works, what doesn't? I am seeing a therapist, and I try to really consider everything she says, whether I like it or not. Like, for example, she wanted me to do these breathing techniques for a couple minutes every day. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't want to do them, but how can I accomplish the same goal in a way that I feel that I will honestly do? Because sometimes I wouldn't, and for about a year, it was very difficult for me to get off the couch. And one day I made a deal with myself, because I listened to something that Jordan Peterson was said, and he said, sometimes your deals aren't actually fair, even though you think that they're beyond fair, right? So I was like, okay, you need to get up and do one wall push-up, and that's all you're doing the rest of your day. I'm not trying to trick you into doing other workouts. So I got up, I did one wall push-up. That's all I did. And the next day I'm like, you know what? I could do wall push-ups. It doesn't hurt my joints that much. I can do these things. And then it just kind of spiraled from there. I took that first step, and then I started, partnering with this company, or not partnering, but just trying to help them raise some money. And now I'm like woodworking and shooting and doing archery and doing all of these things that have been helping me and keeping me consistent. I talk about a lot of these things I've been going through on my Instagram. I don't want to load you guys up too much. I know I talk a lot, but yeah.
Yeah. What's your Instagram? How would people find that? Just so we can push people that direction as well.
Yeah, it's my name, Hank Alemany. So it's HankAlemany. And that's where I push out most of my content, is on Instagram.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, and I will say one other book that I read recently that I thought was really good was Sean Johnson's Attacking Anxiety. I think that is, my daughter struggles with that at times, and just to try to understand and learn more about what other people are feeling and some of the other stuff that even that I'm feeling, I felt like that book was kind of foundational, and it is by a pastor. So it does bring God into it. However, he doesn't overload that portion of it. He also goes into the physiological stuff, and what you can do is kind of like quick rescue tips. So I think it even tells you in like chapter 1, flip to the back. If you're with somebody you love that's having an anxiety attack, these are the quick steps. If you're the one having them, then these are your quick steps. So for nothing else, those quick steps were pretty cool. So
yeah, I think my biggest resource is just stuff like this, right? Getting in front of people that I respect, and they give me the resources that I need, and I'm hoping that I can get to a point in my life to where I can be that person for other people,
Too cool, man. It's been a pleasure having you. Last parting shot, over to you, Doc.
Well, I'm sure, brother Hank, I appreciate your time, man. I appreciate you coming on after we met, and you accomplished your objective, whether you know it or not, bud. I mean, how long we've been chatting now? Somebody's going to hear this, and here's one thing they can take away, and that's what we do it for, man. Like, you come out of the military. What am I going to do next? I don't know, man. Tabula rasa. Like that's a blank question. Figure it out. There's no career counselor. There's no detailer. There's nobody but you figuring it out. So like you said, Hank, how do you figure it out? You talk to a bunch of folks. You listen to a bunch of folks. Maybe something they did will click with you. Maybe something they did won't click with you necessarily, but you can adapt what they did into your situation. So, you accomplished your goal, man. You came on podcast, and somebody's going to watch this or hear this, and they're going to take away one thing, and that's how we win, man. So I appreciate you coming on, dude.
I hope so, man. Thank you so much. I respect you guys a lot. It's an honor being on this particular podcast, and I hope to talk to you guys again soon.
Right on, brother. And hey, man, we'll get links to the K9 Partners for Patriots. We'll have them come on the show, like mention to them, share your episode with them, whatever. Like anything we can do to help you help others, people, man. That's, you know what I mean? We're all in the same fight, right?
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it.
Brother.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks, JB.
Absolutely. What a fun episode. Thanks. I appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for tuning in and spending a bit of time with us at the Military Transition Academy, powered by Vets to PM. If we piqued your interest, but you want more details, please head over to the website vetstopm.com and see if we can help prepare you for a better tomorrow or a future meaningful and lucrative career.